Okay, let's unpack this. What happens when you've been at the top? CEO, EVP, head of the department. But now, that formal title, that big office,
Yeah.
it's not really your main thing anymore. How do you keep making an impact? How do you maintain your influence when, well, the power structure looks different? It's a really big question for a lot of seasoned execs today.
It's a crucial one. And what's fascinating here really is how our source material looks at this. It's not just, what's next in my career. It frames it as a critical imperative, something seasoned leaders need to figure out. So this deep dive is really built around this great content series, the Encore Executive. Specifically, we're looking at part 4, translating power into influence, how to maintain leadership impact without the title. It's by Laura Johnson. She's an executive career strategist, calls herself a legacy architect.
Right, a legacy architect. I like that. So our mission today really is to explore this new architecture of executive influence. We're going to dive into the key ways impact happens now, ways that go way beyond just a job title. And then give you a clear roadmap, hopefully, for translating all that wisdom, all that experience you've got into a really powerful, kind of unconstrained next chapter for yourself. So let's just jump right in. There's this fundamental shift happening in leadership, isn't there? The old way, where your authority came straight from your title, your budget, how big your team was. It's evolving fast. Those aren't the only things that matter for impact anymore. The numbers really back this up. Like millennials, they're set to be 75%, three-quarters, of the workforce by 2025. That's next year. And get this one surprised me. 58% of business decision makers, they're spending at least an hour every week just reading thought leadership content.
That's huge. An hour a week. And it really raises a key question, doesn't it? In a world that's so driven by data, how does human wisdom, that judgment, how does it become even more important? What our source points out is this pretty significant leadership vacuum. They cite that a striking 77% of organizations feel they lack enough leadership depth. 77%. And maybe even more worrying, trust in managers. Well, it really dropped from 46% back in 2022 down to just 29% in 2024. But this actually creates amazing opportunities for experienced executives like you, people who know how to operate beyond just the formal hierarchy. It's a real pivot, from command and control to more connect and influence. Your decades of making tough calls, navigating crises, steering organizations, that gives you something AI just can't replicate. It's that judgment, right? Forged in the real world, synthesizing insights from market shocks, big cultural shifts. You've seen it.
Okay, so this shift, commands to connect, that means a whole new toolkit, essentially. Because if influence isn't just tied to your title now, what is it tied to? And this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The source lays out 4 crucial dimensions of influence. And these go way beyond any org chart. It's not just what you know.
Exactly. It's how you project it, how you apply it. Let's break them down. First up, expertise-based influence. And look, this isn't just about knowing a lot of stuff. It's about your specific ability to take complex information and synthesize it into insights people can actually use. Actionable insights. Think about it like this. The source says 73% of B2B execs find thought leadership more trustworthy than traditional marketing. 73%. That means your well-explained insights, they're like a premium currency now, buys trust faster than ads. So how are you packaging your wisdom?
That's a good question. Makes you think. Okay, what's number 2?
Number 2 is network-driven influence. Those relationships you've built over your career. Invaluable assets, strategic assets. But, and this is key, they're not static. You have to actively cultivate them. It's the difference between just having a long list of contacts and having real advocates who will actually vouch for you, open doors, make connections.
And I guess the digital world is huge for that now, right? For building and using those connections.
Oh, absolutely huge. Which brings us to number 3. Platform-powered influence. Nowadays, having a digital presence isn't really optional for executives. It's pretty much non-negotiable. Consider this data point. By 2022, 70% of Fortune 500 CEOs were active on at least one social platform. That's up from just 40% in 2016. Big jump. And even more telling, maybe, is that financial readers trusted a CEO who uses social media up to 9 times more than one who doesn't. Your digital footprint isn't just a static web page. It's a dynamic way to show what you know. And finally, number 4. Reputation-based influence. This is where your track record, your history of success, creates this powerful halo effect. It's like this automatic positive assumption people make about you based on what you've done before. Your credibility walks in ahead of you. This is super powerful if you're looking at advisory roles or board positions, because your past performance is really the main currency there. It signals trustworthiness.
Okay, that all sounds incredibly positive, very empowering. But I imagine for some people, especially those used to having significant corporate power, there might be some some anxiety. The source calls it influence anxiety, right? This sort of fear that without the formal title, your voice just won't land the same way.
Yeah, and that anxiety is totally understandable. We all feel that kind of thing during transitions. But if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the source really encourages seeing this not as a limitation, but as an unleashing. It clarifies that, look, your influence was never just about the title anyway. It was always about your ability to consistently deliver value, make good calls, inspire confidence. Those core abilities, they haven't gone anywhere. They're fully intact. In fact, sometimes they become even stronger when they're freed up from the day-to-day grind, the organizational politics. So you're not really losing power. You're gaining strategic flexibility. You get to focus entirely on those high-value things that use your deepest strengths, your biggest experiences.
Right, strategic flexibility. I like that framing. So if it's not just about the title, how do you actually build this new kind of influence architecture? It sounds like it needs to be more than just, swapping business cards at events. The source mentions a reciprocal value creation approach. What did that look like?
Exactly. It's not transactional. The most successful execs in this space, they don't operate alone. They consciously build and manage or orchestrate these networks. The source actually outlines a pretty robust strategic network architecture. 4 key parts. First, your inner circle. Now, this isn't just your buddies. It's maybe 5 to 7 really trusted advisors, people who act as your strategic sounding board. They give you honest feedback, they challenge your assumptions, and importantly, they offer diverse perspectives, maybe from different industries, different generations even.
Okay, so a real brain trust. Makes sense. What else?
Second is your professional network. This is broader. Industry peers, former colleagues, business contacts. This network is key for referrals, finding potential partners, maybe collaborative projects that cross industry lines. You want to mix here established leaders, but also, promising up-and-comers.
And you mentioned thought leadership earlier. Is there a network specifically for that?
Yes, that's the third one, the thought leadership network. Think writers, researchers, academics, maybe podcasters or other content creators. People who can help amplify your ideas, give you platforms to share your expertise. These relationships are crucial for building that intellectual influence beyond just your immediate circle. And finally, the fourth one is the next generation network. Younger professionals. They bring fresh eyes on emerging trends, new tech, how markets are shifting. Engaging with them keeps you sharp, connected to what's next. Plus, it's great for mentorship both ways. It's reciprocal learning.
That network structure makes a lot of sense. And a really powerful, concrete example of this influence in action seems to be the fractional executive, right? For anyone listening who isn't familiar, can you quickly define that? It's not quite the same as being an interim exec.
Right, good distinction. A fractional executive is typically a seasoned C-suite level pro who provides strategic leadership, but on a part-time contract basis, often to multiple companies simultaneously. Whereas an interim executive is usually full-time, one company, just for a temporary fixed period.
Got it. And the growth in this fractional space has been pretty wild, hasn't it?
Explosive is the word. And it really validates this whole influence strategy we're talking about. Get this, the number of fractional executives literally doubled in just 2 years. Went from about 60,000 in 2022 to 120,000 in 2024. Doubled. And if you need more proof this is a major shift, look at LinkedIn. Profiles mentioning fractional work skyrocketed from maybe 2,000 in 2022 to over 110,000 in early 2024. So the source is spot on when it says this isn't a trend, it's a fundamental shift. This whole model just proved that your experience has real measurable market value outside of a traditional full-time job. Companies are paying premium rates. The average for fractional sales leaders, for instance, is over $9,600 a month. And over half, 52.8% actually, of all fractional execs earn over $100,000 a year from this work. And importantly, they're not paying you to run the daily operations. They're paying for your judgment, your strategic insight, your industry knowledge, your problem-solving chops. In fact, 72% of CEOs say they plan to use more fractional executives. They want that specialized expertise on tap. So yeah, it validates the strategy because you see immediate credibility transfer, you see results driven without formal authority, you see clear market validation through the rates, and it allows for that pure strategic focus.
That is absolutely fascinating, and it really pushes you to think differently, doesn't it, about how your own insights, your own expertise could maybe apply in totally different areas. This idea the source mentions, transferable influence. Taking what you learned in, say, automotive supply chains and applying that knowledge to help an e-commerce company fix their logistics. Or using your financial regulatory background to guide a new fintech startup.
Exactly. That's what the source calls the cross-pollination advantage. Exactly. It turns out high-growth companies, the ones with 50% higher shareholder returns, they actively seek outside perspectives. Sometimes being an outsider to an industry is your biggest asset, provided you can show how your strategies solve their problems. And this loops right back to the digital influence imperative. Because while, sure, younger folks might be naturally quicker with the latest platforms, the seasoned executive's unique edge is the substance of the content they can create, content born from deep experience. McKinsey talks about needing a human-first culture around AI. That requires judgment. So your strategic content should focus on things only you can really offer, like analyzing current trends but putting them in historical context, sharing crisis leadership lessons from actual crises you managed, or detailing those strategic decision-making frameworks you developed over decades. That's the gold.
Okay, so you're building the network, creating the content, maybe exploring fractional work.
Yeah.
But how do you actually know if any of it is, well, working? Influence without measurement. It's just activity, right? How do you track if it's actually making a difference?
Great point. You absolutely need metrics. Helps you adjust, helps you prove the impact. The source breaks it down nicely into leading indicators and lagging indicators. Leading indicators are the early signs, things like inbound opportunity flow. Are people starting to reach out to you unsolicited for advice, speaking gigs, maybe board seats? Also, content engagement metrics. But go beyond just likes. Are you getting real comments, DMs from decision makers? Are influencers sharing your stuff? Then there's network growth quality. Look at who you're connecting with. Is the percentage of C-level or VP-level contacts increasing? And finally, speaking and media invitations. That's clear external validation that your expertise is being recognized.
Okay, those are good early signs. What about the more tangible long-term results?
Right, those are the lagging indicators. This is where you see the payoff. Number one is revenue from influence activities. So actual money from consulting, board pay, speaking fees that came directly from your personal brand and network efforts. Also, strategic role acquisitions. Did you land those board positions or key advisory roles you were targeting? And ultimately, thought leadership recognition. Things like winning industry awards, getting published in major journals, or seeing your ideas cited by others. Those are the big markers that show your influence is real and sustained.
What really stands out from all this is what the source calls the competitive advantage of experience. In today's world, everything moves so fast. Everyone's chasing the next new thing. But having decades of leadership under your belt, that's actually becoming a rare and incredibly valuable asset. The report pointed out that 72% of leaders prioritize growth, but they only spend about 22% of their time on long-term growth stuff. That's a huge disconnect, isn't it? And it seems like that's exactly the gap that experienced advisors, fractional execs, board members are perfectly suited to fill. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, really?
It means your edge, your competitive advantage, is precisely that ability to bring strategic patience, to bring historical perspective. Look, younger leaders are often fantastic at speed, at adopting new tech quickly. That's great. But they often haven't seen enough cycles to recognize the patterns to avoid predictable mistakes, right? That comes with time. Your influence grows when you become that voice of reasoned experience, especially in rooms full of maybe short-term tactical panic. You bring that been there, navigated that wisdom. That's invaluable.
It really is. And this all sounds great, maybe a bit daunting, but the source actually gives a pretty clear roadmap to get started, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's very practical. It outlines some quick win strategies you can do in the first, say, 30 to 60 days, and then a more comprehensive long-term development roadmap for the next 12 to 18 months. For quick wins, like weeks 1 and 2. Audit your digital presence, LinkedIn especially. Plan out maybe 3 to 5 core content themes based on your unique expertise, and reach out to 10 key contacts just to reconnect, no big ass.
Okay, starting simple, then what?
Weeks 3 and 4. Get that first piece of content out, a LinkedIn article, maybe a blog post. Start commenting strategically on industry news. And apply for 3 speaking gigs, even small ones. Then weeks 5 and 6. Offer to mentor maybe 1 or 2 emerging leaders. Join a relevant professional association. And start actively looking into specific fractional opportunities. Finally, weeks 7 and 8. Try to develop a compelling case study from your past work. Publish a slightly deeper analysis of an industry trend, and ideally, aim to secure that first fractional or advisory conversation or project.
That feels really doable. A solid plan for the first couple of months. And then for the longer haul, building that real legacy.
Yeah, the long-term development roadmap goes further. Months 1 to 3, focus on platform building, really establishing your voice with consistent content, getting those first speaking gigs, maybe starting an email list, building media contacts. Months 4 to 6, move into authority development. Think deeper reputation building. maybe white papers, starting a podcast or video series, landing a more significant fractional role, perhaps linking up with a university. Then, months 7 to 12 are about ecosystem integration, becoming a real fixture in your industry's conversations, maybe organizing roundtables, developing your own unique frameworks people can use, writing for major publications. And finally, months 13 to 18 focus on legacy building. This is where you might think about writing a book, setting up a formal mentorship program, maybe creating intellectual property around your methods. It's a systematic way, really, to translate that power you had into lasting purpose and influence. If we step back and look at the big picture here, this shift from positional power to personal influence, it's really an evolution. It's moving towards a type of impact that genuinely goes beyond any single organization. Your influence doesn't have to shrink when you leave the corner office. Actually, it can expand if you cultivate it right, apply it strategically. It's really a testament, I think, to the enduring, irreplaceable value of experience and wisdom.
That really is the core message, isn't it? That this next chapter, it's not about winding down or stepping back. It's potentially an amplification of everything you've learned, everything you've achieved. It feels like the future really belongs to those leaders who can make that translation, power into purpose, authority into genuine influence, experience into broad impact. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is this. What's that unique blend of strategic experience, deep industry knowledge, and just hard-won wisdom that you possess? And how are you going to intentionally, strategically cultivate that blend to create influence that truly operates free from titles, budgets, or org charts?